everybody, it's Comic Cade, the biggest kid in comics, and welcome to my series, Forgotten Comics, with the Comic Collectors Guild. Today, we're covering another gem from the 90s era of comic books, with a title character so forgotten he's not mentioned once, not even once, in the 2016 DC Encyclopedia. He's a fan favorite, a super cool superhero that'll send a shock to your system. I'm talking about Static. Static was a part of a grouping of minority heroes developed first for Marvel Comics, in this independently owned imprint called Milestone. The very reality Static lived in was separate from the DC universe. He lived in Dakota, and this reality was called the Dakotaverse, which only minorly explains why Static wasn't in the DC Encyclopedia book. Not one or two can be accredited to creating Static. His origins belong with Milestone. Some names include Dwayne McDuffie, Dennis Cohen, Michael Davis, and Derek T. Dingle. I think it's important to understand that the Dakotaverse was owned by Milestone Comics independently at first. DC had publishing rights, that's all. Milestone was founded by an African-American coalition of artists and writers in 1993 for the purpose of creating minority-focused titles. They had 8 monthly series due to the many Crisis event storylines for DC Comics. Eventually, during the events of Final Crisis, the Dakotaverse did merge with DC Comics. By the way, they're still doing Crisis events today. So yeah, right, that was the Final Crisis. They're doing it on TV now. TV, movies, the comic books, they're still doing Crisis events. In fact, their tagline should be DC Midlife Crisis at this point, because you know what? Every time they do these Crisis events, it only seems to reboot everything and strip away all originality. No offense, DC, but why? Why do you keep doing this? Why do you guys think this is okay? Let's just rip all originality from your own comic books? I mean, Rebirth? The New 52? Static's true identity is Virgil Hawkins, which in comic continuity was going to get revenge on a mob thug by the docks when cops came in and smoked them out using tear gas. This gas had low-level radiation for a marker to tag anyone attempting to flee. However, the radiation was spiked with quantum juice, an experimental mutagen. Come on, that makes me think of Ninja Turtles right there. Huh? Mutagen? Cowabunga, dude? The gangs and the people affected by this juice called the event of that night the Big Bang, and all those who were mutated were labeled Bang Babies. I know it's kind of corny, but it's also kind of fantastic, because it's such a localized event that the rest of the world had yet to experience. So that, I find that more original. It's not just, the world full of superheroes. This is Dakota we're talking about. This is Dakota! It's not the whole stinking world. He claims to be a geek, owning an avid interest in comic books and video games. I feel like Static and me would get along in life really well. That actually applies to this part of the story, so forgive me for sounding a bit out of place with that one, but he loves comic books. And with his interest in comic books, he takes his newfound electromagnetic powers and becomes a superhero. Unlike most heroes, Static didn't lose anyone dramatically in life for the sake of his origin. He still lives with his parents and attends high school when not being a crime fighter. The thing I like most about his character is that he's sort of an average kid, a geek that has a certain too cool for school attitude, but at the heart of his character, he always means well. His longest run in comics was his first series, Static, published in 1993. It ran for 45 issues, ending in 1997. Sadly, this would have been one of those fantastic characters that I would have completely overlooked, or that would have completely slipped by me in life, had it not been for one thing. The Static Shock series! The series that took place within the DC animated universe, my favorite DC universe. One aspect of the series that I appreciate a lot today is that they they literally never made a big deal what skin color anyone was, what tone of skin they had. The only thing that they cared about was sticking up for one another and fighting for what's right. It's like a small town gang war, but with powers. I should also mention that Static did have other comics. He's had 3 series and an 8-issue run under the title Static Shock in the New 52. One which I refuse to read. I will never read that series because it puts Static in New York City. I mean, I know this is in the Marvel Universe, this is DC Comics continuity, and a reboot of DC Comics continuity to boot. But why? Why put him in New York City? It's like so overused. Dakota was an original place. It's like having something original and just pitching it because something else is more acceptable and more well known. It just doesn't feel right to me. It feels like they could have done more with Dakota. Yeah, that's enough of my ranting, but how could we continue Static? How could we bring it back and do it again? What would I pitch for this series? I will be completely honest with you. They should just bring Static back with a sort of comic book grunge art style and possibly a mystery or two. Perhaps Dakota could be a place full of strange characters, world domination type villains and crooks trying to take advantage of people. Clubs that use their members for evil deeds in order to be one of them. Just bring Static back. That's not so difficult. If you need any inspiration, look at the way the animated series was made. Take that and apply it to the way the original comic series played out. And you have yourself a brand new take that feels like it honors the classic character. There isn't much more to be said about Static. He's gone, but not forgotten. I mean, personally, I would love to dive into Static's origins more of his original series in the 90s. I think that's not my typical choice for a series, but I think I would really enjoy reading it and getting into his character more. I read maybe the first 4 issues in preparation for this episode, and I gotta say, what I read I really liked. I thought it was different from everything else in the 90s, because I've been exploring a lot of 90s comic books recently, and you've been here throughout the whole thing, so thank you very much for keeping with me, and I'm sorry that this episode didn't have a proper pitch. Sometimes comic book characters are just perfect the way they are, and I'm not saying that there weren't elements that could be changed, as I gave examples of things that could be used in a reboot or a continuation of Static's story, but some characters are just written well. Some characters I do enjoy just the way they are, and I think you could do that too. I think maybe this will give you an opportunity to explore Static in his character so that he isn't forgotten, and hopefully encourage DC Comics to bring him back in a better way, a more respectful way to the original character. As I said, I will not be reading the New 52 version. That about wraps it up here on Forgotten Comics. I'm your host, Comicade. If you want to find more of my videos, go over to my channel, Comicade, Comicade. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and all that great stuff. And until the next one, keep it unreal. Oh, you're still here. Hi. Thought you were done. You came back for. Oh, you're one of those, like, you stick for the end credit scene. I get it. I do that in all the Marvel movies. I do that all the time. I know that there's always more to be seen. It's not that kind of show. This is just that was it. That was it. It was hard enough putting that together. I know how to film stuff, but I'm not Kevin Feige. So, thanks for stopping by.
Shock to your system.